Ed Lane, host of Southside Connection, play-by-play voice as well for ESPN Southside, covering a lot of great games in the Piedmont District. He joined me on the Sports Buffet podcast. We look ahead to week 1 of high school football involving the Southside teams. We talk Martinsville, Brookville, Magna Vista, Heritage, as well as look at the Bassett Bengals, the Tunstall Trojans, and Patrick County as they all embark on week 1 non-district showdowns. Ed Lane, Sports Buffet podcast.
Always love to have royalty on the Sports Buffet podcast. The king, Ed Lane, brings that to us from ESPN Southside. And Ed, we'll start with the game that you guys have on the air tonight, and I'm looking really forward to hearing it with Martinsville and Brookville. Brookville's going to make the trip down. What are they going to see when they see the Bulldogs?
Well, I think the one thing that we know is Brookville's a good ball club. Very great quarterback in Kendall Beecraft, guided them to a state championship last year. For Martinsville, I look at this as a team right now that they didn't win a ball game in the preseason. They lost a couple of fairly close scrimmages to Salem, 28-7, but that was last week, and it was closer than it looked. I think you're going to see a Martinsville team that has a lot of athletes, but the question that has been plaguing everyone around here have been the drop balls that have been plaguing the Martinsville wide receivers. If they rectify that, we might see a fun shootout that goes both ways. If Martinsville's unable to get a hold on that, it might be a one-way shootout as we've seen in years past.
Brookville can strike quick with that offense with Kendall Beecraft, like you mentioned. Defensively, how important is it for the Bulldogs that, I would say, 1, to prevent the big play, but 2, to keep that Brookville offense off the field?
Oh, I think that's the crucial thing for Martinsville is finding a way to keep this offense that's fairly balanced with a bit of an option look similar to Washington and Lee's, and utilize that ground game to eat up clock. I know you have to be able to throw the ball in high school football today, much like you do at the other levels, but they need to keep that offense on the field, gaining first downs, especially early in the ball game, to where I don't know if you're going to wear down Coach Woody's squad. They're very well conditioned and have been through those types of ball games. But if nothing else, you keep that offense piloted by Kendall Beecraft off the field, just because he's such an explosive, disciplined quarterback that I think that gives Brookville a huge advantage. And the best place for him to be is on the ground, which is not always easy, or on the sideline, which is also not very easy.
If you're Martinsville, how happy are you that you're catching Brookville, game 1 in the season, where that can be a time where some teams are trying to get kinks out?
I think it's a great point, Bob. Timing is crucial for Martinsville. I think on 2 fronts. One, you got a Brookville team that's got a lot of inexperience on the outside. Martinsville, they have athletes, too, out there, which I think neutralizes the normal advantage Brookville has on the receiving end of the passing game. I think the other thing for Martinsville is this is a program that a lot of people around here think might be able to win the Piedmont District. They've got Brandon Carter at quarterback. He's a 100 and 200-meter regional champion in outdoor track for both of those. Phenomenal athlete, a guy that's got the size at 6'1", has got very good athleticism, as we've already noted. But they need a real in-game reality check. And Brookville is the defending state champion with a returning quarterback and a head coach who's done it with many different teams. I think it's great for Martinsville on that front because they're going to get a real eye-opener real quickly about how good they are, where they need to improve, whether they can hang with the big boys of the state right off the bat.
And it won't get any easier for Martinsville next week as they travel to Cave Spring. Let's look at Patrick County real quick. They're going to host North Stokes as they're going to cross the line from North Carolina. Tell me a little bit about Patrick County's team as they're kind of looking to rebuild things down there in Stewart.
I think one of the most impressive moves that we've seen over the last couple of years was Patrick County grabbing Kenny Perry, a former Bassett product, actually, part of Jay Gilbert's staff there, and pulling him in. The attitude has changed. I saw them at a 7-on-7 this year, where, granted, they were mostly freshmen, sophomore players, still not as filled out as you would see from guys with a full offseason, but just more athletes than we've seen in quite some time. Brian Drury is projected to be the starting quarterback for this year. I think with an offensive line that still has got good tenacity and certainly plays with a sense of hard-nosed football, there's the effort there. But I don't know whether that offensive line understands the entire protection schemes. I think it's a different offense that Kenny Perry will probably look to bring. Trey Penn may get action at quarterback as well. He's a little bit more of a scrambler, more of a mobile threat, and I actually think that might free up Ryan Drury, who's a tough, durable receiver, to be sort of a go-to target for him over the middle, a guy you can count on when protection breaks down. There are options there for Kenny Perry, but this is, in my opinion, is a little different than what you see with most teams, just because the numbers were down last year. Toward the back end of that 20-game losing streak we saw last year, the attitude was down. I love what Kenny Perry's done, changing the attitude in the offseason. I do think that they're going to turn it around and win the Piedmont District or go undefeated this year is getting a little bit carried away.
And, kind of another situation at Patrick County. They played North Stokes this week, but then they've got that bye in week 2. How important is it that they get off to a good start?
I think it's crucial for them just to get the confidence going. I don't think anybody, again, expects this team to be an above 500 team overall. I think it certainly is a lot to ask with the talent that's been more proven in the district and even some of their tougher games outside the district. A win against North Stokes, though, I think gives them the understanding, or even a close ball game against North Stokes will help this team understand that they're heading in the right direction and give them a real in-game gauge on what Coach Kenny Perry is looking to do. I know they lost 34-0 to Chatham last week. Chatham's a team that I don't think you sleep on in the Dogwood District this year. They are a team that might be able to be 500 or around there for that district. So for Patrick County, I think it was a good gauge, but a good start to their season is crucial. Heading into an early bye, just so these guys understand that Coach Perry has a grasp on what he's doing, and is certainly putting them in the best spot to succeed.
Jay Gilbert's Bassett Bengals are going to hit the road for week 1 as they will travel down to Carroll County. What pops out to you when you see this matchup?
Bassett generally has been fortunate enough to have more talented, just raw athletes than Carroll County, but they're a team that was very young last year. They only lost 7 seniors. The preseason indications are this team has taken a lot of steps to gaining that discipline needed, but they've got to be a little bit further ahead than where they've been. Carroll County is always a fundamentally sound team. Tom Hale has those guys playing hard every night. They're a team that if you don't bring your smart game, your thinking cap, you could be in trouble. Bassett hung with Richlands. They only lost 10-0. And I know Richlands lost Devon Johnson, the running back who's now at Marshall. But that's an impressive thing to go 4 hours, young, still a team that has not proven themselves on a bus ride and hang with Richlands losing 10-0. The thing that stood out, though, is they had their chances. Coach Gilbert was not pleased with the missed opportunities. 6 penalties, 4 turnovers inside the Richlands 30. They could have feasibly put some points on the board without making those self-inflicted wounds. It cost them against Richlands. Thankfully, that's in the benefit game, and it doesn't count in the overall standings. But I know Carroll County doesn't have the deep history that Richlands does, but Coach Tom Hale gets those guys prepared, and Bassett, this is a good gauge for where this young athletic team is discipline-wise. Got grouped with 5 guys, 6, 7 guys, actually, that can run a 4.540 according to Jay Gilbert, but it's all for naught without the discipline.
Dan Rivers going to hit the road to take on Tunstall. Tunstall's a team that kind of has really been trying to seek an identity here in the Piedmont and really get solid ground when they can hit the playoffs there in Region 4. What do you expect out of Tunstall?
I think for Tunstall, the quarterback battle has certainly been monitored. Chris Buckner is believed to have the inside track on that particular spot. They hung tough with GW Danville. I know the score doesn't indicate it. They lost 27-3. And as Bill Parcells once said, you are what your record says you are, and certainly the scoreboard goes into that. But they gave up 3 big plays for touchdowns. The key for Tunstall, in my eyes, is finding a way to create them offensively, because that's been something they've struggled with, and minimize them defensively. They've hung in a lot of ball games with a lot of really good teams over the last couple of years, but they've got to take that next step as a program. Can they be a team that now can generate the big play while limiting other teams' big plays?
Final game involving the Piedmont teams. Magna Vista hits the road to bring it up to Lynchburg to take on the Heritage Pioneers at City Stadium. Magna Vista, obviously, when you lose Harvey Taylor, I don't think you can just shake it off and say, okay, no big deal. Talk about what they have replacing Harvey Taylor in the offensive backfield.
Well, the key start for me is obviously Kalen Jamison, the quarterback. He played the better game, in my opinion. We did that game last week at Dan River, Magna Vista Dan River, and the offense looked more comfortable with Kalen Jamison. I know he struggled earlier in the ball game, but when they settled in, when the offensive line settled in, I thought Magna Vista's offensive line and the entire unit functioned pretty well with Kalen Jamison at quarterback. Harvey had a lot of nuances to him. He had a couple of great ball fake moves that he could utilize. That's something that is just going to have to come with time if the junior Kalen Jamison is going to put it together. But it starts with him. I think one guy that's really worth keeping an eye on is Keon Maven. He's a running back for them. I know he's gained a lot of headlines at linebacker, and now he goes back to safety this year. But offensively, Maven, to me, is the guy that, if you're Magna Vista, you may ride him a little more early in the year because he's a big running back, 6'2", 200 pounds. He's gotten looks from North Carolina, ECU. The pedigree is there. I would think that you're going to have to turn to him earlier in the year, if nothing else, to be that guy that you can trust to gain valuable yardage.
How important is it that Magna Vista tries to be Magna Vista of 2012 and not Magna Vista of 2011 or anything like that with some new personnel in key positions?
I think it's huge. I mean, I look at this team right now, Bob, as one. They've been very fortunate to have a high volume of athletes. This area is finally starting to understand the value of off-season workouts, middle school teams, JV teams, those feeder programs, and Magna Vista has been sort of the basis for that. But there's a lot of hype from last year's team. Harvey Taylor, Zacchaeus Switcher, preseason and postseason offensive and defensive district players of the year. Deshaun Penn, the receiver who's now at Hargrave with their PG program. They lose a lot of playmakers. The key for Magna Vista, I think as much as anything, as you pointed out, Bob, is the mental side of things. Be themselves. Play within Joe Favrero's system, but don't try and be something you're not. That stuff will come with time.
You know, real quick before we wrap up about Joe Favero, what makes Joe Favero such a good coach in your opinion?
I think attitude.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen a guy that gets it. I don't know of a guy that works harder than he does either, but the attitude he's instilled, he's a guy that you know who's in charge of that program. Last week, I think, was a prime example. They stopped Dan Rivers' two-point conversion at the very end of the ball game, in the benefit game, and there was a little pushing and shoving that broke out, a little fighting that ensued as well after that, and the players ran onto the field. Coach Rivera was not pleased on two fronts. Obviously, the pushing and shoving after the game wants his guys to play the game the right way, but the other part of it was knowing when the right time to celebrate is. And as big of a benefit win as that was for Magna Vista, it's a benefit game.
Right.
And I think he understands that. I really think that's a huge aspect to him. He was quick on disciplining those guys, the whole team, so they understood the magnitude of that on both fronts, when to celebrate and when not. And I think that's one thing that you know is he's in control of that program, and he puts in the work that verifies it. Anybody can be a hard person and sort of a hard you-know-what, but this is a guy that, by all accounts, puts in 90-hour work weeks during the season. He's in there right after the game watching film till early Saturday morning. He puts in the work and commands that level of respect.
I'm lucky to work 90 hours in a month.
I would say that I work a lot of hours, not 90, and not gaining the glory that Joe Favero has brought Magna Vista by any means.
Right, and one last thing before we wrap up, and definitely appreciate your time. Hopefully we'll be able to do this on a weekly basis throughout the year, previewing the Piedmont with Ed Lane. But, back in the day when I saw Magna Vista play some, it seemed like they almost were surprised sometimes if they won. And I think Joe Favero has changed the culture in Ridgeway to we expect to win now. It's a surprise if we don't win.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's expecting to win. He wants his guys to go in expecting to win and understanding that you're always winning for the greater good of obviously the community and the team, but for the opportunity to keep making deep playoff runs and to build a football juggernaut.
And Ed, you guys have the Brookville Bees in Martinsville Week 1, great matchup on ESPN Southside. But, if people want some high school football before that, I know they have a place to go, right?
Yeah, it's always fun. I mean, we have our AutosByNelson.com tailgate show fueled and fed by Steve's Easy Marathon in Delhi. It starts at 5. We interview all the coaches in the Piedmont district. We also have some great interviews with phenomenal guests like some guy, I think his name's Bob, I think.
Yeah,
you must buffet dude, I think.
You must have been desperate on that week, but that's okay.
Absolutely. Well, we have all those great guests. It's a lot of fun, and certainly we do game previews as well. Try and make a big deal of it, and we've been fortunate that the community has latched onto that.
I don't know about you, Ed, but I'm pumped that Fridays are back in the fall as we head towards the fall.
It's like Christmas in August.
Well, Merry Christmas, Ed, and we'll talk to you soon.
Merry Christmas, Santa.
I'm going to be tuned into ESPN Southside because I want to hear the Bees and the Bulldogs with Ed Lane on Friday night. Ed, appreciate your time.
Bob, always a pleasure. Thank you.